All right, we should be live. Hello, everybody. We're a bit late, but we assume a few of you might also be, so we'll just start in about a minute. Thanks for joining us. And
Hello, everyone.
hello, it's coffee time here in Slovenia, so we might be seeing us grabbing some coffee during the podcast. Hello, guest CNL. Let's say I humbled that for sure, right? All right. Welcome to another On Track podcast. We're going to do a V8 special this time since we just launched the new version, the version 8.10 last week on mainnet. So we'll be diving deep into that in the next hour, and we will be also showcasing a couple of exciting things and just demonstrating how you can do what you can do with V8.0. V8.1.0. That was
Close call.
Close call, yeah. All right. We, like I said, we'll wait for a minute or two for folks to join in, and like I said, there will be we'll talk a bunch about 8.1.0, the major release of the random sampling system on the DKG. And so it's going to be Jurij and me with you today. We'll showcase some of the stuff that's it's really exciting, I believe, that you probably haven't seen yet. For sure, some of it you haven't seen yet. So it's going to be quite new. And then we'll also have a part of the podcast dedicated to your questions. So if you have any questions about 8.1.0, feel free to shoot them, I believe, in the chat. Yes, so that is true. Shoot it in the chat, and then we'll get to respond. I mean, we see your messages right now, so there's a couple of hellos. There's a hello from England, hello from Slovenia. We're actually at the farm, as you might see by our background. It's a farm. It's blurry, but actually it's not blur on the camera. It's blurry because of the light. We're on a farm in. Is it possible to translate Kozolec?
I don't think so. I think it's a protected structure, farm structure in Slovenia. So I think it's going to have to stay Kozolec.
Yeah, it's a very, very local thing, but it's like basically a farm structure for hay, right? For
hay, for some
drying
equipment,
hay,
machinery, corn. Also, they used to dry here. Yeah.
And then they turned it into kind of a mini Airbnb or something, and it's pretty cool. So why this farm is significant is because back when OriginTrail was starting, the first rudimentary implementation at the time was done together with a beef producer from very close from where we are right now, enabling shoppers to, using OriginTrail at the time, discover the provenance of the meat, beef in this case particularly. So they could go to a shop, they could scan and see which farm exactly this piece of meat came from. And actually we're eating this meat today for lunch after this podcast. So it's 1 p.m. where we are at, 1:15-ish. Hello, Luku. Nice to see you, man. And yeah, so can you track hay on the DKG?
You could, although I'm not sure that's that's such a high-end use case. But you definitely could. You could track anything, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you could track anything as long as it can be identified, right? And that's it's a big reason why we've been so involved with the GS1 over the years. Some of you know for sure, GS1 is this global standards organization. You know, it's barcode. Barcode is the most famous standard, but they have a bunch of other standards, including how to track things. So hay, trains, cars, coffee, beef, whatever you can track with it, and it's very powerful. Also, knowledge graphs are perfect for this because knowledge graphs have this notion of identification of objects, and the decentralized knowledge graph, OriginTrail, builds up on that notion. So classic centralized knowledge graphs would identify things based on URLs, while OriginTrail DKG, and now in version 8, uses something called UALs, Uniform Asset Locators. So instead of Uniform Resource Locators, which are the cornerstone of the web since World Wide Web started, Web 1, when Sir Tim Berners-Lee got this thing built on top of the internet, which was built by Dr. Bob Metcalfe and others. Basically, it's been the cornerstone of the internet. And we see the need of such a decentralized identifier that is provably unique and ownable, and therefore knowledge assets in the DKG support are basically built on top of this notion of UALs. So, and you'll see that today. We'll show it a bit. So you could technically assign a UAL or create a knowledge asset for any entity existing today in the world. And with this, you could create a permanent, ownable, self-resolvable identifier that allows you to fetch the information about this particular thing, whatever that asset is, hay or car or whatever, or a digital asset. A digital asset could be even like some piece of information, like one piece of information that could be the key piece of information that a certain, let's say, AI agent might need to provide an answer or to make a decision. And for example, that could be financial information. So we'll show a little bit of that today and give you just a kind of a summary of what V8 has brought here and what DKG can do today. But before we dive into that, I think it's worthwhile summarizing the last several months and basically what V8 was here to bring, this V8 engine for the DKG, which was the successor of the OriginTrail version 6, DKG version 6, that was live for several years, already implementing a lot of AI capability. So V8 brings that to a whole new level, and you'll see it today. Jurij will be showing something really cool. But yes, V8 was born from a need of two particular things. One was scalability. So what we needed is to get to a place where we can have billions of such assets tracked on the DKG, billions of objects. And with version 6, we were hitting some scalability bottlenecks, particularly on the blockchain side of things. There were two things that were problematic. One thing was that you couldn't publish too many things at once, too many information about too many assets at once. And publishing equals adding knowledge to the DKG, for those of you who might be new. And the second thing was that the nodes that host the DKG, as DKG, it's its own network of 75 nodes, last I looked today, on the mainnet. All these nodes basically are funded by the fees of those publishers. So whenever I want to create a knowledge asset on the DKG, and I'll show that today, I have to spend some Trac tokens because, of course, nobody will be running nodes or servers for free. So those who are running those 75 nodes need to be compensated for that. Otherwise, they wouldn't run it. So there's a whole incentive system that makes it so that it's worthwhile running a node, and that node at the same time needs to ensure in a decentralized way that it's actually doing what it's supposed to do. Otherwise, you could just be like, "Hey, I'm running a node, give me rewards," and then trust me, bro. But trust me, bro, doesn't work in OriginTrail. So actually, the difference between version 6 and version 8 is that we've created a much more scalable system of nodes proving to the blockchain that they're indeed storing this information. And it's actually a system that has been generalized into something we call proofs of knowledge, or proof of knowledge. Basically, proof of knowledge is a mechanism where an entity, like a node or an agent, for example, can verifiably prove to any service via the blockchain that they know certain information. Now, that might sound too generic. So I'll try to explain it a bit deeper. But essentially, this genericism, the generalization of it, is very, very powerful because then it allows us to apply it all over the place. So not just for the DKG internals, but this is the first time we're using such a system, and we're using it to tackle a problem that DKG had in version 6, which it was that it couldn't basically stand the scale of the demand for publishing. So so back to that scalability problem, V6, you couldn't publish too many things at once, and then the nodes couldn't prove all of that stuff to the chain. There was just so much of it. So we had to create a better system, and we did so. So the first problem of publishing was tackled by something called batch minting. So you can now create many knowledge assets in one transaction, and essentially removing this bottleneck of the blockchain or minimizing it extremely. Theoretically, you could publish up to 1 million knowledge assets in one transaction. I say theoretically because it depends on the chain. It depends on the moment, is a block empty or is it full? Because essentially what you're doing when you're publishing knowledge assets, you're minting an NFT for each one of them. So obviously you cannot mint like 100 billion NFTs in one transaction yet. But with this new standard that we have employed in the DKG V8, ERC 1155 Delta, that one allows you to do batch minting. Previously, it was ERC 721, which is kind of the older, let's say, NFT standard. But that standard obviously doesn't support this batch minting, which is what we required. So knowledge assets, again, they're these UAL identified pieces of the knowledge graph for any asset in the world, but they also contain an NFT on the chain. And this NFT represents ownership and history of what happened with that ownership. So because it's an NFT, it can be exposed to knowledge markets, it can be easily tracked. And with that NFT, we also can create these unique identifiers, because NFTs are essentially unique. They're the smart contract and the token ID combination together with the chain is a globally unique identifier that the URL encompasses. So nobody can create two of the same URLs ever, which is a very, very powerful thing when we talk about knowledge graphs, because that means we can distinguish, like Jurij creates something and I create something, and we can even create this information about the same asset, but we can distinguish that those are two records, which is really important for provenance. So effectively, batch minting was the first thing that tackled, and that was released by 8.0, already unleashing a lot of scalability. But what came last week, and what we were really heavily focused over the past several months in the 8.10, is this proof of knowledge system, or random sampling. So what does random sampling do, and why is it so cool? Essentially, the nodes now need to send less transactions to the blockchain and have less work to do because of random sampling, because they are able to now provide proofs of knowledge to the chain. What does this proof of knowledge look like? I'll make an analogy that I guess everybody will be able to relate to. If you remember the days of school where you had a professor like test you orally, asking you a random question like, do you know what's the, let's say, capital of France? And then you know it's a random question from like a domain of knowledge that you're supposed to know. That's why you're on the test. If you know it and you respond well, and the professor asks you 5, 10 questions, they don't ask you everything from the book or the books or the subject. Like they ask you 5 or 10 random questions, and if you nail them all, you get a A, right? If you nail a little bit less than all, you get a B, and so forth. Well, this is literally how random sampling works. So random sampling, the nodes are the students in that case, and the blockchain is the professor. And the blockchain is a really good professor because it's not biased in any way. So, it won't be like, I like Jurij better than Brana, so I'm going to, give him some slack. No, it just randomly generates challenges for nodes, which is why it's called random sampling. Essentially, it takes this huge DKG and says, okay, I want to take a random piece of it, and I want to ask you, do you know about this? And if you do, that's a plus for you. So the more pluses you collect, or the more points essentially you collect by answering those questions correctly as a node, the better your node health. And that's a new metric in the system. So one of we might actually just show that as well, the new staking UI in the system. But before I share the screen, I'll just introduce that. that notion. So essentially, the nodes in the DKG, like I said, now not only store the information through this batch minting way where we publish more scalably, we also prove that more scalably and effectively maintain a bigger graph than we did with V6, much bigger graph with much less resources. So that unlocks scalability where we can get into billions of knowledge assets compared to only millions that were, what was it, up to 10, something like 10 million when V6 was done. Order of magnitude is definitely something like that. It was like close to 10, maybe a bit more.
Just over, I think, and now we're getting close to a
very close to
10 digits.
Yeah, very close to 1 billion today. So if I open the staking UI, I can see we're at 999.6 almost million knowledge assets. So perhaps even by the time of this podcast ends, we will be reaching 1 billion knowledge assets on the DKG, which is a major milestone, and we're super proud of it. But yeah, back to random sampling. I just want to close that one, or close it, or at least explain a bit more. We're in the basically in the launch has happened, so the system went online, and then there's a couple of more things that need to go online for everything to be completed on random sampling. So essentially, once the system went online, which is last Wednesday, Thursday, while it was being launched, the system is now basically making nodes continuously prove send these proofs of knowledge to the blockchain, and everything is being accounted for. As I said, there's two new metrics to help people understand what's going on in this complex system, and that is the node health and node power. These two metrics are, we may say, proxy metrics, synthetic metrics that under the hood they contextualize and more humanize the more, let's say, difficult to understand concepts under the hood that happen in the system. But of course, we'll go through them here. And essentially, they just make it much simpler for somebody who wants to participate in the system to understand what to do, particularly around staking. So when it comes to staking on the DKG is a very unique system. And because it's unique, it has a little bit of a learning curve compared to your classic blockchain staking. Like, for example, if you go and stake on Lido, for example, for Ethereum, it's kind of known what's going on there in the sense of, you stake some ETH, there's some inflation, that inflation is being shared. You do share some responsibility and validation, but the DKG is not a blockchain, so it's a bit different. And essentially, in the DKG, you pick a node that you host on, that you're going to be staking on, and this picking of the node actually benefits the system. This is you, as a, let's say, rational economic actor, trying to get obviously the best return for yourself, for your Trac. But to do that, you need to pick the best nodes. So the best nodes, the ones that are performing the best, which means they have the best node health and node power, are effectively the best nodes to stake. Previously, just before a week ago, you had to understand more concepts under the hood outside of these two. Those concepts were how much stake a node has, what is its publishing factor, what is its ask, and basically what is its uptime. So there's a lot of these things that are very technical, 4+, and technically now you have 2, and they're, in our opinion, they're much more understandable. That's the feedback we've been getting. There's a question: healthier the node equals what exactly? Okay, so I'll explain both of them separately. So node health, back to the random sampling proof of knowledge system. A healthy node responds correctly to a majority of questions asked randomly by the system. A node is asked questions about 50 times a day. So there's 50 challenges that it needs to respond to. And those challenges, it might be able to respond to or might not. Why would a node not be able to respond to challenges? There's some simple reasons. For example, the node could be down. Let's say I'm a lousy node operator and I don't even care about to even like pay attention to my node. Maybe something went down, like, I don't know, my Linux server got updated and restarted and whatever. Like, there's always something like this that somebody who operates some whatever system server, doesn't have to be an OriginTrail node, but for any type of system, you have to keep monitoring it, right, and maintaining it. So let's say if somebody is really poor at maintaining it and their node could just be down, that's one reason why it wouldn't be responding to a challenge. That's basically like an analogy sense. You're not showing up to the test for your professor, so you don't get the points. Another reason could be that there's like a bug, or it could be that for example, the node runs out of tokens. For example, its wallets could be empty and it could not send transactions, even though it might know the answer. It might be like up and so on. So basically, it's up to the node operator to be diligent in managing the service of the node, because effectively, the high quality of DKG service depends on people who are running nodes. There's no, Big Daddy Amazon or something that's helping, to maintain this thing high. It's all us. So we have the responsibility as a community, and the system is designed so that it rewards the more responsible ones. Having that said, also one part of why a node might not be able to submit proof is that it might not know something. So it might be up, it might have tokens, it might be functioning properly, no bugs, but it just might not, like, it might be challenged for something that it doesn't know, like you want to test. So therefore that node would probably miss to submit the proof. There's also a chance that the node submits a wrong proof. That's something that should not happen, but again, it could be possible due to a bug or something. But long story short, it's a matter of how well the node operates and how much the node knows. How much knowledge does it have? And if it doesn't have enough knowledge, there's a new feature that was just released, the sync feature, that allows the nodes to download the missing information from the DKG. For example, this is also useful when a new node is being set up. So you set up a node today, it's going to be empty, right? It didn't receive any of the publishings because it wasn't up until this moment. Well, it's going to be able to sync and download the information from the network. And that is analogous to how blockchain nodes work. So if you were to run a Bitcoin node now, today, you want to put up a Bitcoin node for whatever reason, for you to be able to use it fully and basically send transactions through it and so forth, query the chain state, you would actually have to rebuild the chain state. It would sync the entire chain. So it will start from block one and then up to the future, which also means that because there's a lot of information, like we said, about almost billion knowledge assets, or in case of Bitcoin, years of blocks, it's actually a feature that takes some time to execute. So, and when I say time, I mean usually days, depending on how far back your node is. For example, another good reason why sync is there is, let's say you're updating your node for whatever reason, like expanding, let's say it's hard disk or RAM memory or something, and you're doing that, and you have to restart your Linux server. That takes 30 minutes maybe altogether. So in these 30 minutes, your node was down. So you want to get the missing knowledge of those 30 minutes because there is a chance that your node will be challenged for it. So that's where also the sync feature is very useful. Hello, Mr. Hot to Go. Glad to see you here too. So yeah, back to Peter's question. Basically, in summary, the healthier the node means that the more better maintained it is and the more knowledge it contains. So that's beneficial for the system. The other KPI is node power. And this KPI basically combines the three other metrics: stake, ask, and publishing factor. And I'll explain all three of them quickly. So stake is obviously how much Trac has been staked to a certain node. The bigger the stake, the better for the system. Where does the stake come from? Well, from delegators. So for example, I could be a delegator. I have some Trac that I bought on whatever, an exchange. And then I want to, but I'm maybe not a builder, so I'm not gonna use that Trac for publishing. Perhaps I just want to support the ecosystem. I want to be a long-term holder, so it makes a lot of sense for me to stake. So during this staking process, instead of just staking somewhere and not like, actually contributing by thinking about where to stake, here this thinking helps the system by, you essentially curating better nodes and making the system more secure by that. So when you're a delegator, you should basically consider that you pick the best available nodes by node health and node power. Node power, again, combines stake, ask, and publishing factor. So the bigger the stake, the bigger the power. The bigger the publishing factor, that means the more that node has brought in new knowledge to the DKG, that's the better for the system. Because the system without publishing is just running dry. So what we want to see as an ecosystem is more knowledge being introduced to the DKG, more publishing. Therefore, the nodes who are responsible for taking that load, it's not zero cost operation to publish for nodes. It does take some resources. Those nodes are the ones who that publishing will be accounted for, and then that goes into its overall power. So, and actually, you know what? I can share the screen. Just I don't know if somebody needs to enable my screen sharing, but if we open the staking dashboard, you can see it. So here we go. So if you look at the table here, you will see the node power and node health presented in the columns. So for example, this node has a power of 100. The nodes on top, actually, on this staking dashboard have a power of 100 because power is a relative metric. So we take the highest power node. In this case, this is the Swiss Railways node on base, and also NeuroWeb, which has very high stake, as you can see, 2 million, or very, very close to 2 million. Certain ask and very big publishing factor. In this case, this SVB, they're doing a lot and using the DKG quite a bit. So these nodes on top, they have you can see their publishing factor and percentage of how much they contribute to the network, and that's very, very powerful. Basically, that's where the fees come from. You can also see the number of delegators, which is a good signal. If there's a lot of delegators to a node, that is that means there's quite a bit of trust. And then there's this ask parameter. This ask parameter is basically what does the node ask for in terms of Trac fees for publishing. But its ask is not exactly the price on the network. The price of the entire service of the network is combined asks of all of the nodes, essentially. All of the nodes that are within the sigma distance of the current price. So effectively, that maintains a system which converges towards a price that makes sense to the most of the nodes, excluding the outliers. Like, for example, somebody can set ask 100,000 times bigger than the rest. It won't be counted in. And at the same time, it also incentivizes the ask to, over the long term, that the price of the service to be more efficient for publishers particularly. This is necessary because over time we want to see more knowledge and we want to see more adoption. But for adoption to come, we cannot get into the situation like, for example, Ethereum did when nobody could really use it. That's why the DKG, when it was even in the earlier versions, had to expand also to other chains because it was just not feasible to use Ethereum because of the high gas fees. I'm sure everybody knows about that by now. By the way, this is the new staking UI, so it's a bit refreshed. Like I said, new KPIs, but feedback is super welcome. And as you can see, when this epoch ends, the current epoch ends, which is July 13th, we'll also start seeing what are the rewards that were collected for each node. Essentially, that is going to also show the annualized node yield here on the right. And you know what? I can just demonstrate very quickly how we can stake. Staking is quite easy. So I will just connect to my wallet. And yes, basically one more thing that's new. So there's some nodes obviously that have stake that are full. So if I connect I'll take Rabbi, and I should have a demo wallet. Yeah, demo wallet. So now you will see the full nodes, the nodes that there's no room to stake on because they're already full. 2 million, as a reminder, is the top, the maximum amount of stake that can be assigned to a node. Then they're essentially, you're no longer able to click, right? So it wasn't that obvious before, and a lot of people were asking, like, how should I pick a node? So it was very hard to explain these things, plus then explain, like, well, 2 million limit. So now it's a bit more obvious in the UI. You can also pick here, show nodes available for staking. So basically the nodes that have some room. And let's say I have some tokens on NeuroWeb on this wallet. So I'm just going to select NeuroWeb as a blockchain here. And let's say I like this little cute dog node because it has the best, let's sort by power and the best health out of all these nodes. And if I click here, I can add some stake. So when I click on the node, either here on the whole row or manage stake, it says manage stake because I already added a little bit. But basically what you can do is here, delegate, let's add one just for demo, and essentially send a couple of transactions, and that is the staking experience. Obviously, I have to have Trac to be able to do this, and Neuro. So NeuroWeb, I executed these 2 transactions, and in a second or 2, I guess once this completes, this is completed. So basically, my stake now is 2 Trac on this node. I staked 1 now, and I staked 1 just before to test my wallet if it's working fine. So there's some updates here that are, in terms of UX, they should help quite a bit. And yes, this should also, so this feature, somebody reported from the community, I saw it on GitHub, that it's, as you can see, it's not functioning in active nodes. That fix is coming out today. So there's that's also coming, and it's been very, very helpful that you guys have shared your findings, both in terms of running the nodes and in terms of the staking UI. It helped us a lot, so we can improve it. There's a question: is there a cap for node power and health? Is it possible for someone to monopolize it? That's a good question. So I'll explain a bit more. A short answer would be no. And essentially, node power, like I said, to increase node power, a node runner can attract more stake, can open up their node for publishing or publish themselves to increase the publishing factor, and they can choose a sensible ask. A sensible ask is either the current, let's say, network average or network price. That is what everybody's kind of the average of the 2 sigma nodes, or slightly below it. That improves your node power. Having that said, the stake is the most powerful factor. That means that inherently, due to the limitations of tokenomics, which is that Trac is a limited supply token of 500 million non-mintable, non-burnable tokens, to have let's say to have high node power, you need to acquire this expensive asset that's limited, but at the same time, 1 node is limited up to 2 million stake. So basically, a case where in case this wasn't limited, let's say you could have an unlimited amount of stake on the node, then yes, 1 node could attract 100 million Trac and win everything and basically centralize the system. So therefore, that is not the case. That's why there's this limitation of 2 million of stake. That is the cap for node staking. Now, if you see that some node has a bit more than 2 million in the staking UI, that's because it has some rewards that are automatically restaked that it hasn't collected, that the delegators haven't collected yet. And you can see that on a couple of nodes in the network. Yet again, that extra stake doesn't is not part of the equations. So all of the smart contract functions, they see if a node has value up to 2 million, then that value is used. If the value is above 2 million, the value of 2 million is used. So essentially, this additional stake on top of 2 million is not, it's not, let's say, it's not valuable in the sense of node power. It doesn't increase node power. So in a way, it's less efficient capital. It makes sense to move that Trac to some other node, because on that other node, it would increase its node power and it would contribute to additional rewards. So in a way, whenever we see a node above 2 million, it's a good signal to take some of that stake and move it to another node. Having that said, we got some questions, I think, that are very valuable to answer about the restaking and the whole claiming process. So the nodes prove random sampling in epochs, which last 30 days. And for these 30 days, that's like back to the professor analogy. Imagine a professor testing you for 30 days. It's a very long test, but that's how it goes. And at the end of these 30 days, it counts up all the points, all of the answers you got right or wrong or missed or whatever. And it says, aha, your score for this test is 80 or something like that. So the nodes technically collect this score. And at the end of the epoch, there's a tally, essentially. All of the publishing fees that were published for that epoch, all of the Trac that accumulated for that epoch, is now split proportionally across the scores. So one node, let's say there's two nodes in the network. Hypothetically, Jurij's node and my node, and his node has a whole score of, 100, and my node has a score of 50. So total, it's 150, representing all of the rewards. He would get 2/3, his node will get 2/3, my node will get 1/3, because I got 1/3 of the overall points. And effectively, that's how random sampling works. So all of the nodes get those points. So that's where this question that says, when will we be able to see total pending rewards for nodes? V6 and backlog. Okay, that's a good question. So the next epoch starts we have to have one final epoch, one that finished, so that we can do this tally that I just explained. I hope somewhat explained. And that ends July 13th. So that will be the first epoch of 8.1.0 that will show how much the nodes earned for that epoch. Now, what's important is that there's two more releases that are going to unlock V6 rewards. There have been rewards that have been allocated during the V6 time that need to now be distributed through the random sampling system. And that's going to be 8.1.1, which today we're releasing an incremental update towards that. It's not going to unlock the rewards just yet, but it's going to fix up some issues we discovered through also some submissions through GitHub, which again, thanks a lot, guys. Kudos for all of the energy you put in. So there's some fixes coming out today to improve the node, essentially node health, because we've seen some glitches on the nodes regarding the blaze graph. But anyways, back to the question. So there's going to be 8.1.1. When it fully goes out, it will be possible to claim V6 rewards, both for the period from the launch of V8, which is December 24th last year, up until last week, right? So the beginning of this previous epoch, but also for future epochs. So the nodes will be sending proofs for that as well. And then once that happens, we will see, once that releases out, we will know how much total rewards each node is allocated to for the previous period, and how much it will be starting to collect for the future period for V6. And that goes for 8.1.2 as well, which will take care of V8 rewards between the V8.0 and V8.1 launches. So expect a lot more to be shared on that will be shared in the documentation. But just to clarify how these rewards are computed, so they're basically computed based on the chain state. So that means we assume that random sampling was up and all of the nodes were perfect students. They were submitting all of the proofs. So essentially the competition was based on node power and node health. As imagine as if all of the nodes had node health set at 100. The reason why we need to do this is obviously we didn't have random sampling online. So that's why it was important random sampling goes online. And when it went online just last week, now we can start going back and basically crunching all that chain data so that for V6 and V8, all these assumptions are V8.0. These assumptions are basically computed in the contracts. And that also means that, for example, I've been getting questions, if somebody, let's say, staked 1 day before 8.10 launch, that will they get the same amount of rewards as somebody who staked in January? The answer is no, obviously, because all of those events are tracked on chain, so that will be also reflected. So basically, the time, how long have you staked, how much have you staked, that's going to be, and which node you staked, obviously, based on its node power, is going to be the determinant of the amount of rewards. So expect to see more on that in the next weeks. And like we said, once we do that, we can consider rolling out of the random sampling system complete. If a publisher like SBB set their ask to 0, will they win more rewards? Non-publishing nodes could become not viable. Actually, no. SBB, if they set their ask to 0, their ask won't matter. That's the fully correct answer, because if they set it to 0, they won't be in the 2 sigma range from the current network fee. That same goes in the other direction. If somebody increases the fee incredibly, that also won't be accounted, because the contracts don't let that happen. That is protection system, so that somebody, particularly unilaterally, somebody cannot manipulate the system. And essentially, this 2 sigma is computed based on a stake-weighted average of all of the nodes asks. But all of the nodes ask within the 2 sigma of the current ask. So if they set it to 0, they would fall out of the current sigma, and just their contribution wouldn't count. It's like their vote is invalid, if you will. Non-publishing nodes could become not viable. I think it's a wide question, but what I can say is that non-publishing nodes and nodes with lower stake have become more viable with V8.1. It's also a big thing. It used to be that we had this famous cliff effect problem in V6, which was the situation where only the nodes with 2 million and close to 2 million stake were sharing the rewards, because in the previous system, that's how the tokenomics was implemented. Unfortunately, it turned out like that. So we made sure that this is not the case anymore. So right now, actually, as long as the node is somewhat healthy, even with low power, that means, let's say, low stake or low publishing or no publishing factor, it will still share some portion of the rewards. So I would say that actually the system is better, that the non-publishing nodes are more viable than they were. And good questions, by the way, guys. Also happy to answer those questions in Telegram. I now realize I've been speaking for 45 minutes.
Yes, you have.
It's like I didn't let you speak a word, man. So maybe it's a good moment to ask you to show us some of the new coolness. But should I show that? Yeah, maybe actually before that I showed the scaling.
Maybe you do that, and then it's gonna tie in nicely into the coolness that I have to show. Yes, which is really cool.
Stay tuned for the coolness. It's a new thing that especially builders will be excited for, but I think everybody will understand the big impact. So okay, one more thing we wanted to just show to demonstrate this scalability is I want to show you something that a year ago when it was done, it took about 20 times longer to publish on the DKG. That depends on let's say the particularities of different cases, but this is at least 20 times longer. That's in terms of time, but also there's in terms of how much you can squeeze in one transaction. So I'm going to show you something. Let me just load cursor here. Let's see. Okay. Can I? No. Whoever should let me share the screen, please. Okay, so I'm sharing the entire screen, and this is cursor, and So it might look a little technical, but actually I don't need this. I'll try to explain it and zoom in a little bit. So what you're seeing here is an Edgar report of the company Apple. And this is actually a graph created report. I'm showing it for the reason of showing how much data is inside. There's a lot of data, and that's basically all financial data. So financial instruments tables, earnings per share, consolidated statements, income taxes, all these things. That's all public information, by the way. And that's something that has been used and published on the DKG during these 6 times. And I can just show you by a quick count. If we count how many IDs are in this, there's 1,269 different things in this file. So if I scroll a bit, you can see, for example, some observations of an amendment flag, some NASDAQ observations. Each one of these would basically constitute a knowledge asset here. And previously, like I said, it was several orders of magnitude harder and slower to publish this. Now, how can we publish this? Well, we can do a very simple script. In this case, I have a script, but Jurij will show something cooler. I'm going old school here. So what I prepared is just a very simple script that loads this file and basically takes the JSON and tries to publish it to the DKG. So essentially, it calls the DKG client, as you can see here. Oh, pardon me, my fingers are glitching. So basically, this is the function. So I'm calling the asset create function, and I'm passing it all the content that comes from this file that I show you. And instead of chunking it into smaller chunks and then publishing many times one by one, now we're going to do it all at once. And the way I'm going to do it all at once is I'm just going to say node publishing, and I'm going to call for this file. One note I'm doing here is, and I'll just run it so I can show you how you can do this. So right now it's publishing. That takes several blocks to complete, and I'm publishing a NeuroWeb. But where does this publishing, how can you do the same? You can do the same script by coming here to the DKG quick start in the docs, and you can use Node.js or Python. I'm using Node.js in this case. So I literally followed this example. It's very simple. You do a couple of npm commands, you associate a private key, you take some JSON like this, and here it is. That's the simple script I'm using literally. As you can see, I copy pasted this. I'm just publishing a bigger file. And then once you do that, you just call it with the node, and it's going to publish. How can you publish to mainnet or testnet? We offer some public nodes, so you don't have to run a node. And if you find this page in the docs, you can find mainnet public node. I'm using that one right now. And you have testnet public nodes, a couple of them, though we might be also opening up more. And by the way, these nodes are now that I did this, now that I'm publishing, which is done, as you can see, I'm going back here. So you can see finalized and completed. I created this knowledge asset, and it took, like less than a minute? I don't even know exactly. I should have logged the time. There's a bunch of logs here of the transactions and so forth, which I don't necessarily need to log, but I kept it logged anyway. So there it is. I very quickly managed to create this. And actually, you know what? Let's go check out the transaction on the blockchain. This is the key demo. So let's go to NeuroWeb and here. And let's see. Yeah, so that transaction happened just a minute ago. So it's this one. And if we see what happened in the transaction, just a moment for Subscan to load. It has a lot of stuff to load. You can see that there's a lot of NFTs minted. These are all of these knowledge assets, and there's a lot.
You can see actually if you scroll all the way up here, in the field where you work in this one. If you scroll all the way up, you can actually see the numbering. So there were 1,265 knowledge assets actually minted now from this.
From this one, yeah. So the three other IDs that are missing, the four are the initial ID of the column. Yeah, okay. So not every ID in the JSON LD ends up. The metadata doesn't go. And I've spent three track almost to do this. So there you go. This is a very, very simple demonstration of what we can do with DKG V8 in one transaction. And this file could have been bigger. So I could have had, where is it? Here, it could have had thousands of more records. So like I said, it will still happen in one transaction. So the speed depends pretty much on the chain and the DKG. And in this case, the DKG is able to process this very well. And you can do the same. It's very easy. So basically just go to the docs, find the quick start in the build with DKG section, pick your favorite language, and I promise you can do it in 5 minutes. That's why it says test drive the DKG in 5 minutes. And if you need a node, so you don't want to run one, you can find this section public nodes, or you can search here for public nodes, and you can use these public nodes for testnet or mainnet, so you don't have to run your own. But those of you who are running your nodes, you might want to consider opening them up to increase your publishing factor. There is instructions how to do that. If you go here into the build with DKG in the core node section, there's a section of how to open up your node for publishing. So basically this enables anybody to connect with the client to your node, and gives you an example on how you can do that. It's quite easy. It's just changing the configuration. Pardon me. So that basically allows anybody who runs a node to do so, and we encourage you to do so, because technically this is like providing RPC services to blockchain users. That's basically the same analogy. It's just it's not an RPC service; it's a knowledge graph service in the DKG sense. Okay, there's some more questions.
I think there was one more, yeah.
Just to clarify, with all nodes online during V6, share those rewards equally, or will rewards be allocated by amount of knowledge size stored? Yeah, so that's okay. A bit more complex question. So nodes, the V6 rewards, we can kind of roughly split into two groups. There's some rewards that for which they will be claimable because the time has passed, and then there's rewards that the nodes need to prove still in the future, because the rewards for V6 have been allocated across a period of a year. The reason why it needed to happen like that is to essentially consolidate the rewards that were locked in the V6 contracts that were actually spanning multiple years. Some of them were shorter than a year, some of them were longer than a year. So in order to somehow tackle this and reconcile it with the random sampling system, it was allocated to a year, or 12 epochs. 12, technically, to be very precise, 12 epochs, so which is 360 days. And some of these epochs have passed, and some of the epochs have not passed. So for the epochs that have not passed, the same system applies. The nodes will be sending proofs, so it matters how much knowledge they contain. But for the epochs that have completely passed, like I said, the assumption will be that the nodes have had health at 100. That's because we didn't have the system go online. The system could not check for health at that time. So the nodes will be basically competing on power. That's basically how we have to tackle it. I see some more questions. How do developers estimate and budget for costs when building applications that might publish thousands of knowledge assets daily? Is there a predictable cost model, or do guess like price fluctuations? That's a good question. Essentially, the system being decentralized, its cost can change because the cost is decided based on collective node ask votes, if you will. So like I mentioned, the nodes set their own ask, what they believe the ask should be, and then stake weighted average is computed based on the 2 sigma distance from the current price. I know it sounds a mouthful, but it has to be like this. So long story short, it is possible to query that ask price, just like you can query the gas price for blockchain, and you can do that in such a predictable way. What we see as kind of but again, it can fluctuate, obviously. So so it's not a set price, but somebody like a big company says, okay, it costs like $10 a month or something. Having that said, it's advisable that publishers essentially run their nodes. So if you're running your node, you're not only able to participate in the price vote, you're also able to fully own the infrastructure that you're building your products on. And then finally, you're able to compete for rewards too. So it's, in a way, it's a way for you to be a bigger part of the system and therefore have a better performance in the sense of the price. Because if the price goes up, that there's also now an element that it helps you. You get more Trac because you're a node runner. So in a way, it makes a lot of sense for builders to run their own core nodes.
And maybe also taking like a bit of a, let's say, broader view, or let's say longer timeline view on this, right? If you look at how the costs of knowledge assets and the volumes have behaved, right, on the DKG throughout time, you will see that the volume has been growing significantly while the cost has been going down. So the DKG, every month, every year of it being alive, right, it's becoming more, let's say it's growing more in terms of knowledge assets, but not per knowledge asset costs are going down and becoming more affordable. And that's kind of what brings, let's say, the DKG closer to builders, because it's really becoming, in certain sense, depends on what you use it for, but in a lot of cases, it's the costs are negligible for the business models on top of the DKG. So, and that will be a trend that will continue, right? We keep on growing. There's more publishers, more knowledge coming in, the cost per knowledge asset going down, and we get the network effects of connected knowledge on the DKG. So that's also a perspective to keep in mind. But yeah, do we have another question? Or
there's another one that's, I think, related. Make it difficult. I
think that's a continuation of the same question. So I think we covered that one.
So it's there's things you can do to make it easier, but just as with any decentralized system, there is this component where the market sets the actual reality. So it's not we as Trace Labs cannot do it, even though we're core developers. We should not be able to do it. When will the next DKG Con be? Actually, you should be waiting for a full announcement, but I can sort of leak a bit of alpha. The next DKG Con is going to happen most likely September 30th and or October 1st. In Amsterdam again this year. So plenty of exciting things to be said for that, but I cannot say more at the moment. All I can say is that it's going to be even better than last year. And last year, those of you who have been, to me personally, that was the highlight of the year. I went to plenty of conferences and we did great things with amazing people all over the world. But the energy at DKG Con was special. So Amsterdam is the place to be at end of September, beginning of October. And if you're there, you'll have a chance to meet some really, really big people from literally the early days of the internet to like some of the biggest heavyweights today. So it's growing up to be one of the most action-packed AI conferences in the world, I can say. Any alpha? Thanks. Yeah, looking forward to it too, man. I see you're from Holland, so I hope you join us. The situation with the node Luna lander, I wouldn't be able to say honestly. So if there's a particular question that you want to show to the node runners, I suggest using the node runner community channel, so in Telegram or Discord. The discussion there has been very nice lately, by the way, and we've tried to hear your voice, by the way, guys, because we could have done a better job in the past of being more approachable and communicative. It's not that we didn't want to. It's not that we're bad people and we don't like folks there, but it's because we're just been heads down building. And when you're coding, it's a little hard to break your flow constantly with chats. So, but we were we could have done better. I must say. So we recognize that, and thanks for giving us that feedback. So that's why we're trying to keep up the conversation going. And again, we see that coming back our way in a really good way, because you guys help us find a lot of interesting findings, bugs, and things to fix through both Telegram and GitHub. I encourage everybody to use GitHub as much as possible. That's the best place, because it's kind of different when you post something in Telegram, then the discussion goes on for like 2 days, and then kind of want to hop back to something 2 days ago. It's not that convenient. But on GitHub, we have threads, right? And then we can have issues that we can discuss on much deeper, and we can stay on topic, and the day-to-day chat stuff can kind of go its own way, and the topics stay alive, and we can also use the labels and all the other things. So that's pretty good. Question: do you guys hire, and what do you have the most need for? Yes, we do. We are hiring for AI engineers. We're hiring for really software developers who have a mindset of versatility. Somebody who's excited about building trusted AI in our world is somebody who is able to manage different types of technologies such as AI, blockchain, knowledge graphs, and really excited about the vision of OriginTrail. So if you see yourself like that, do let us know. We have an open set of open positions, and we'd be happy to talk. And yeah, we're just recently hired a couple of folks, and they're growing up nicely in the team. But we'd like to see, we need more folks. We cannot do everything. And by the same coin, I also want to invite builders to also, if you have ideas of building something, we're happy to help you in terms of support and guidance. But essentially, there's so many things to build that it's in so little hands that I think it's a perfect time to join the OriginTrail ecosystem as a builder. And that might be a good segue into what you're about to show, the coolness. The cool alpha.
I think there was a lot of cool stuff already, but this is pretty cool also.
You share, or you
want
to intro?
I'll share, but maybe just a couple of words of intro before that. So what we've been, in the builder ecosystem, then trying to bring or kind of made simpler is to build, right, solutions, AI-powered, verifiable AI solutions that utilize the DKG, right? So that can help grow knowledge on the DKG on the one hand, and then retrieve and use that knowledge for various purposes, from healthcare to supply chains to finance to all of these things that we discussed. And one of the cool things that has been out for quite a while now, on that we've released, I think when was it, last year? Did we release the first version of the Edge node? In the summer, yes. I think.
Yes.
So in the summer of last year, we released the first version of the Edge node that was intended for builders to take it, kind of plug into the DKG without having to stake 50,000 tokens and just use it as an let's say a local private edge node that can also tap into the knowledge in the DKG, and then use various AI tools to actually build cool solutions, either for themselves or to monetize and so on and so forth. And a lot of these cool things we have actually seen happen in the last couple of months. We've had builders such as Amos. I'm sure he's also listening here. We've had Sebastian from Sky Ocean as two examples who have done some really cool things with the Edge node and the DKG, and various others. And some nice things that we obviously, some of the more valuable things that came out of this for the team was a lot of feedback on the Edge node itself. So how does it work? What works well? What doesn't work well? What can we improve? And also at the same time during this period, there were some major developments in the world of AI agents, and I'm sure a lot of you on the call have heard a lot about the Model Context Protocol, which was released by Anthropic, I believe, in December or January. So December last year or January this year, as an open source framework to facilitate and allow agents to be empowered by tools and resources in a very simple, straightforward, and interoperable way. Now, we looked at this for the last couple of months, took the feedback from the Edge node, and so from the Edge node builders, and also played around with the MCP already a little bit. I think, what was it, a month or a month and a half ago, around the time of the ETH Belgrade hackathon, we did release a prototype, let's say, MCP plugin with 2 tools where you could really just run the server, the MCP server, and actually create some knowledge assets on the DKG from free text, and then retrieve them and play around with them very easily, right? Without using any special interfaces. You could plug it into your Claude or into your VS Code. Microsoft Copilot, we did a demo, right, where you could then deploy that agent that interacts with the DKG into Teams, right? Really bringing it to millions and millions of users that are maybe not engineers and not technically skilled, but they still benefit obviously from all of the value propositions that agents that are rooted in the centralized knowledge graph could bring. Now, this long introduction, what does this lead us to, is that for the past month, we've been actually building a new Edge node, a new version of the Edge node. We call it just simply Edge node 2.0. Wow, it was on the screen even before I finished it. Somebody's reading my mind. So the Edge node 2.0, and after a long hours of research and testing and trying to figure out the best way to build it in a sense that it's the most usable to as many of you as possible and that it brings as much value as possible, the conclusion was really to build the Edge node around the model context protocol, really use the MCP as the core. And so we started building the MCP as the core, and we're probably around halfway there currently of getting it really fully released. But there are some cool things that we can already show you now, and I will share the screen now and just guide you through how the concept and the architecture quickly looks like, how easy it will be to interact with the DKG, add tools, add plugins is what we'll call them, and then we'll try to actually just use the agent in VS Code, which I'll share, to retrieve the knowledge asset that Branimir created. So maybe in the meanwhile, as I'm sharing the screen, you can shoot over the UAL so that I can try and retrieve it. Let me quickly pull up the screen.
Where's the UAL? Maybe while you do that, I also can just add a little bit zoom out context. MCP is the hottest thing in AI at the moment, and I think the big thing about I didn't log it.
It must be somewhere here.
Yeah, man, I didn't. I logged the transaction and I didn't log the UAL. I'll figure it out.
All right.
Yeah, I'll find it. But anyways, why is MCP such an important thing, especially for OriginTrail? Is because OriginTrail, like you guys see, it's a very unique type of thing. Nobody else is building a decentralized knowledge graph in the world, or at least not as good as we are, as we as a community. And you see how hard it is. It's even hard to understand the concept, like how staking works, what is node power, node health. So traditionally, it's been hard also to build with the DKG, because it requires knowledge of knowledge graphs, of blockchain. It requires knowledge of running the DKG, and then nodes and so forth. What model context protocol allows us to do is to put that complexity all in the back, and basically any AI builder can just use the DKG with minimum complexity. And you'll literally see Jurij do that just now with Edge node 2.0. Which, by the way, is now being written in such a way that it can also be used as a library. So that means, imagine you're a builder, you're building an agent with whatever, LangChain, something. You no longer have to run a separate server with five different services managing a node and then somehow connecting with LangChain. No, you just pull it in LangChain. And you start using it the way you are used to using MCP. And why is MCP so? Everybody's jumping on MCP because it's very, very well organized. Everybody needs something like that if you want to use LLMs. And essentially, we argue that everybody who's using LLMs will need to shift to some form of neurosymbolic AI soon, because just neural AI the LLMs, as we've spoken many times before, but I like to reiterate that because I think it's a very powerful thing. Neural AI is amazing. Like ChatGPT, Claude, all of these tools are great, but we all know they hallucinate. And that's actually their feature. And why do they hallucinate? Because they're a bit too creative and a little bit too dumb in some ways, I have to say. I don't mean in a bad way, but they don't actually reason. And there's a paper recently released by Apple and other papers coming out that models are really good at pattern matching. They're great at like giving you answers for all kinds of things, but you should always validate that answer. So that's where the DKG comes into play. DKG is symbolic AI. It's actually not creative at all. It's literally symbolic in the sense of these things connect in the graph. These concepts make sense. These, for example, these things are connected. This was an observation in the world. We know that 2 + 2 = 4. You can encode that in symbols. Well, if you ask an LLM to like do addition, it often makes a mistake, even though like a kid from 2nd grade can do addition. So the premise is that everybody will have to shift to some form of neurosymbolic AI very soon, because we will be hitting the limitations of what can be done with LLMs. A lot can be done with LLMs, don't get me wrong, we love them, I'm a huge fan, but together with the DKG, their power grows 100-fold, because now you can reliably build AI. And that reliability comes from both symbolic, the power of the graph, but also the verifiability and ownership component. So that means for every piece of information that some agent, like the one that Jurij will show now, uses to do something, we can be sure where it comes from. The agent, can be sure where it comes from, when was it created, does it fit into its worldview? So there's a lot of checks that it can do, and these checks are not of probabilistic nature. They are not hallucinating checks. They're very exact checks. And together with the power of the blockchain, this gives us kind of the best possible route for this to happen. But no longer should the developer take all that complexity and somehow manage that plus build their own thing. With MCP, they can just let it run under the hood. So what Jurij will show now is how you can build a very simple plugin for the edge node with and then use it with MCP. Maybe you can.
Yeah. And maybe just, I think we spoke so much about the MCP. For those, I don't think we really said like in 2 sentences
what is MCP, right?
Yeah. So maybe it makes sense just a sentence or two around this. So what the MCP does is when you're building agents, right? MCP is essentially a very simple and interoperable way of providing those agents with tools. There's questions, just npm install MCP. I will show you. It's really easy to do it. So it's really an easy way to provide agents with tools that they can use. So in our case, we're going to talk about tools to help help agents interact with the DKG, but it can be all sorts of other tools, right? So for example, you want to store some code from your GitHub onto your into your edge node or onto the DKG so that you can retrieve it easier later or connect it to other relevant pieces of knowledge that might give it more context. The agent, you can simply give it the GitHub MCP tool, give it a couple of tools from the decentralized knowledge graph, and the agent will know, okay, I need to use this tool to retrieve data from GitHub. I need this tool to actually transform that code into a knowledge graph, and I need to use the third tool to publish on the DKG. And if you then want to expand the capabilities of the agent, it's not like you need to rewrite the whole thing. You simply add a tool into your list, and it's very easy then to grow this capability or tweak the capability of agents that we have. Now, what we see on the screen actually is this, let's say, first prototype of the Edge Node 2.0 focused around the MCP. And the premise that we're, or the architecture that we're kind of going with is the plugin architecture. So if you can imagine that we have, what we're looking at now is a monorepo of the Edge Node. Not going into very technical things, but monorepo just means that you will not be needing to have 5 different repos and coordinating services and updating them as we have in the current version. Simply, you will come here, you will install it with a single command, and your Edge node will be up and running. Enter, of course, a couple of parameters, and it will be built around, or it is built around the MCP. Plus, it's plugin based. Now, what does this mean? So we have some, let's say we have some default plugin. When you install the edge node, you have some basic functionalities that the agent, of course, can do. So publish to DKG, retrieve from the DKG, do query and get from the DKG. So retrieve assets in a different way. So the agent out of the box, right, knows how to do these things. And then very simply, you can actually just build your plugin. You can add a plugin. A plugin, you can think of a plugin as a list of tools or a set of tools that you can define for your agent to work with the DKG in the way that you want it, right? And so let's say we have an example. You work in healthcare. You want to have health data. You want to just dump health data into your agent, and you want the agent to create structured knowledge graph so that you can use your health data for research later, or you can share it even in exchange for tokens. Whatever that use case might be, you can define a tool that will say, okay, this is the input that I get, like unstructured medical health data, and this is the logic that the tool will go push that data through to get a knowledge graph structured, highly semantic file that the agent, when it looks at it next time, will understand even better, and then it can connect it to other research papers that might be on the DKG and so on and so forth. And adding the plugin, right? It's very simple. It's I have opened a terminal here, so it's literally what was it? I think I wrote the command here. It's just turbogen plugin. Yeah. Turbogen plugin.
Turbo.
So you run this and
turbo.
Turbo.
Yeah.
Yes. Turbogen plugin. There we go.
And ask you for a name, right?
And the only thing you need to do is give it a name. So I'll call it, let's say, plugin Jurij. Let me just make this a little bit larger so you can see.
It lasts a bit on your machine.
My machine is in the process of being replaced.
Okay, it's old.
So it's old and slow. So okay. I am waiting. I'm hoping to get the new one next week, and this will be a lot faster. This used to be a lot faster, also probably because I'm sharing.
Let me try on my machine.
Probably because I'm sharing screen, or it also could be because I'm actually running the server. So let me actually kill the server here on this side.
I'll try running on my end.
There we go. So now it's going. But yeah, it's my machine needs to be upgraded for sure. So as this is running, the only thing we'll have to do is give it a name, and then over here we'll see a new plugin pop up, and all we'll have to do is start writing there. But let me actually.
Something is slow on your machine. Like I can show on mine. Like let's do that.
Okay.
And then you can do the demo. Yeah. So I'm just stealing the share screen. Whoever is on the other side helping this share go show my screen. So yeah, basically what I just did is the same as Jurij. So I said turbogen turbogen plugin, and it takes like a couple of seconds, and then it says what is the name of the plugin. So let's say plugin, I want to call it plugin, let's say Dex, something like that. And then immediately instantiates, or as we like to say, scaffolds this plugin project. So now I can actually go and open this file, and this file has a place to implement this plugin. And actually it's a DKG plugin, so immediately it has this context. So if I go here, basically I can say CTX DKG, let's say client asset create, and as you can see, cursor helped me a lot, and basically I can create a knowledge asset like this through this plugin. Now, how do I access this? Well, there's two ways to do it. One is mcp.register tool, and I could, let's say, it recommended me here an addition tool, but I can say, let's say, creation tool. And whenever you're ready, you just let me know, but I'll create, let's say.
I mean, I'm ready. I just want to also just quickly.
Knowledge creation tool. And here I can describe the tool like this is what it does. It creates knowledge on the DKG. And then here I would say what is the input. Let's say there's two numbers. This would be the function. So this is what would be. There would be some textual result because the MCP takes. Basically, this is LLMs talking to tools, so it will return some text. But I can say, let's say, have a function here that's called publish. And now I'm going to write it a little ugly, but imagine if I did this, if I did function publish. And then I can like do whatever I want inside, like here, I don't know, console log. Hello world.
I can show some of the tools also. Yeah.
So basically, there it is. I just created the plugin, and it shows up here, as you can see on the site. Plugin decks, all files here, everything packaged, ready, and you basically, once you build this, you can run it. And Jurij will show how this goes with the plugin he already made.
Yep. Let me just reshare the screen very quickly.
How do I stop sharing mine?
Am I sharing? Oh, am I sharing my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Go.
Wow. That is smooth. Okay, so I actually added this quick start here just before before we had this podcast.
Maybe you can zoom in just a little bit, because I don't know how it shows on other screens, but I see it
like this.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's huge. Yeah. Maybe a little bit. Yeah,
like this. All right.
Beautiful.
Good. So we have this. I added this plugin quick start here just to play around a little bit and to show you guys how it works. So essentially, you install this, and then there's a couple of things you can do. I kind of added 3 tools here. One is just a joke tool that tells a joke, tell it a topic. So if I tell me a joke about Branimir, it will return about Branimir, which was just a way to test that the thing works. But here we have then a couple of other tools that very simply you can add, which is one for getting knowledge assets from the DKG, and one for creating a knowledge asset from the DKG, which I still have to fine tune a little bit. But we've been playing around with this. And Branimir, I don't know, did you manage to find that UAL that you published?
Oh damn! I was stuck. Can you take a random one?
I can take a random one.
Let me send you a random one. Yeah.
I have a random one. Yeah, but you can still try to find that one.
Yeah. Sorry, I closed the transaction. And
all good. We have created this plugin. It's now actually running. So you can see here this MCP server, which is also my edge node, is actually running. And I have added it to my VS Code over here. So you can see, very simple to add, right? So literally all you have to do is this when you run it locally. Edge node MCP, the URL of your local host, and that's it, right? It's available. You can see here we have 4 tools available, which are the 4 tools that we actually see here. So it's the joke tool, the get tool, the asset create tool, and there's another tool which is actually an API. So, but in any case, what this means now is that I have loaded the MCP into the Edge node MCP server into my VS Code agent. So my VS Code agent has access to all of these tools now. The same can happen on Cursor. You can do the same in Claude, OpenAI. Every client, and by client we mean every agent that supports the MCP plugin with the proper authorization, now can actually access these tools and use them. So if I actually switch here, and I'll just use I think, what is this one? 35653. So I'll just see I have it here in agent mode. I'll tell them, get this knowledge asset from the DKG for me. This is just some random one. I think a demo knowledge asset that we did. If Branimir finds the one, but I think you get the idea.
I'm having trouble. Yeah, I didn't log it.
So we have what's happening now, right? It will say, okay, cool, I need to get this. I'll need to use this tool, and I'll provide this UAL to the tool because that's what the tool requires. I can just give permission to do that, and then it will run the get operation on that node on the DKG to retrieve whatever is in this particular knowledge asset. And this takes a couple of seconds. Sometimes it's a little bit slow, but what this gives us, this flexibility actually gives us. So there we go. So this is a demo test asset. It retrieved it. Here you can see actually all of the things, and there we go. So we have retrieved the knowledge asset from the DKG simply with natural language asking in our VS Code, or could even have it in Teams, right? Wherever, very easily, very close to anyone who doesn't need to be an engineer to actually use the DKG. And what you can then think how quickly this can become extremely powerful, right? When you add like 3, 4, 5 tools that specialize in something, you want to build a paranet, for example, around, I keep coming back to medical health data. You create a tool that is able to translate data from various inputs into some structured, semantically rich data on the knowledge graph. You publish it on the DKG, and immediately you have a tool that can query that and can do something with it. Immediately you have an agent that can do all of these things. So this can really quickly grow and empower the agent to do all sorts of cool things. Plus, I think it's very cool because if you see that somebody has built a plugin that is fantastic for what you want to do on the DKG, and maybe you want to tweak it a bit, you could simply just pull that plugin, install it, and reuse it either in the exact form or amend it, expand it, and so on and so forth. So you have an agent that you're just empowering by adding plugins to your edge node. And that's all, right, that theoretically, technically you need to do to make the agent more powerful.
Yeah, so think of DKG becoming super easy to use memory for agents. And not just any memory, but neurosymbolic memory, the way that I described it, with all of the reliability under the hood. And that any agent that speaks MCP would be able to do that. Any agent that needs to do some critical operation or just random things people are building, like imagine any builder who's used to, let's say, the LangChain ecosystem can just quickly do this. And maybe we can show just how simple this tool is. If you look at it, can we see the share screen back again?
I think we have it, yeah.
Maybe you can just like focus on that, maybe close the side. So if you look at it, it's like what, 10 lines? Basically, you say mcp.register tool, you give it a name, you give it some description. This description is really for the agent to understand what the tool is about. So a good description is a good idea. And then the code is literally 3 lines. It's line 34, get asset result. Return is basically give that result to the LLM. So, I mean, of course, this is a very simple demo tool, but effectively that's how it interacts with the DKG. You don't need more. You just need 1 line, and the edge node immediately has this power. And may I add, and this is kind of a personal dream of mine, I think that all of the core nodes should have this too, like, because this code is not something detached from the core nodes. The core and edge node, they run the same they have the same capabilities, they're just used in a different way. So the edge nodes obviously designed to work on the edge of the network, tablets, laptops, phones, other devices in the future potentially. The idea, and the core nodes obviously being the core of the network, running usually on servers because they need high health. The difference between edge and the core nodes is essentially the health. Nobody is checking the health of the edge nodes because they're not promising to provide a service for the DKG in return for tokens. But you could create an edge node and you can turn it into a core node by adding stake and basically enabling this. But my dream is that all core nodes become MCP servers for the DKG. So that instead of just opening your node like you can do it now for publishing and querying on the DKG, you can open an MCP server for the DKG on your own, and you as a core node runner can open this up for, and basically become a builder and provide some better even ways to accessing the DKG than maybe folks would normally just do. But the best thing about it is so easy. Like, this is literally, you don't even have to understand MCP a lot. You know where you should create the code. The plugin generates everything around, and
so what actually happens, right? It's simple like this. Like, you need to invest some time into writing these lines of codes, because what actually happens is when an agent pings the edge node MCP server, says like, what tools do you have available? This is what they get back. Say, I have this tool that is the DKG get tool. This is what it does. This is what you need to provide me if you want to use that tool. And it goes through all of those tools, and then it decides, and it doesn't need to decide just I'm going to use this one tool and that's it. But it can decide, okay, so my task is to translate, again, going back to healthcare, let's say my doctor's report, which is in PDF format, and publish it on the DKG. So you might have a tool that just takes in PDF and outputs raw data. You might then have a tool that takes this raw data and translates it into JSON-LD, structured knowledge graph representation, and then you have a tool that publishes this on the DKG and returns everything to you in the end. So the agent itself is able to do this, right? Say, I need to use these 3 tools to achieve the goal that you have given me. And this is building the verifiable AI memory that you publish, but you can also retrieve, right? So agents can then also build this network of memories that they always have access to on the DKG to perform better, to do different things, to remember things, preferences, and anything you might want to actually build the agent for. We have a couple of questions. I don't know if you want to have a look at those, but you want to add something?
For sure. I mean, we are already like an hour 30 in, so maybe we should slowly be wrapping up. But like the questions, for sure, I would answer. There's is there a place to publish the plugins like a market? So what you see now, this is in, let's say, early beta stage, but we're looking to have this out sooner rather than later. So let's say order of magnitude of a month, you should be able to get your hands dirty. But if there's somebody who would like to take an early spin, we don't want to hide this away. So if there's builders who want to somehow participate, contribute, provide feedback, do hop into Discord and let's chat about it. I mean, it's currently a closed repo because it's not ready yet for major sharing. The docs are not ready. It's not polished, but we are, we're happy to, share it with you if you're ready to bear the cost of a little bit rough docs and, some things still not being polished out fully. But yeah, essentially, if somebody wants to ping us, we'll share the repo with you. It's not like we're hiding it, and your feedback would help us.
You can already start. I mean, building plugins for this, right? It's like, the architecture might, or architecture, like there's things that need to be finalized, but the plugins themselves, right? I mean,
you've seen a simple plugin.
This plugin is probably how it's going to actually look like for the get, right? So, there's not going to be anything different about that plugin, because if you want to ask the agent to get something from you, that's what's going to do.
Exactly. But so the point being is, what we would benefit from is the more people testing, the more minds thinking in different ways, the better it looks. And so therefore, back to the question, is there a place to publish the plugins like a market? The idea would be that the best plugins can land in the repo itself, so that you can literally contribute your plugin to the repo, and then it's part of the official repo. Obviously, that requires some review, and it's not like, just like that. But also, there's nothing stopping anybody from just hosting a plugin on their own GitHub. We might be able to have some sort of a simple page, which ideally would be on the DKG, that we could just load which plugins are available, so that it would look like a market. So that would be awesome. I'd love to see that. That's also maybe a good idea for somebody to contribute also to the ecosystem, but definitely something to look into. And I want to add one more thing there before we go to the robots question. One more really cool thing about this, and this might be a bit of developer lingo, but the difference between EdgeNode 1.0, the one that you can now download for the docs, and the 2.0, the thing you've just seen, is that the new one is much less opinionated. That means previously on EdgeNode 1.0, we took a lot of components that were used for several years by implementations of OriginTrail in enterprises. So companies like Swiss Railways and the others, for example, if you touch the EdgeNode 2.0, you've seen that there's a knowledge mining service. And this knowledge mining service is a little bit more robust than most people need. It uses something called Apache Airflow, which is a really well-tested, built-out system for managing data pipelines. And of course, we didn't build that from scratch. We took something which is productive and robust, but it might be overly robust for somebody who's not an enterprise. So it's a little bit painful for you to have to install another thing and manage another thing that's kind of big and takes resources, just for having to run an EdgeNode. So technically, this is opinionation. This is the EdgeNode being, saying you have to use Apache Airflow because Brana said so, and that's not generally that builder friendly. For version 1, our approach was, let's build version 1, let's test it, let's use the proven components, and then learn on that and build this. And then this thing, the idea here is that it's much less opinionated, so that effectively we can build less, there's less capability, but there's more opportunity. There's more ability for a builder not to have to learn, I have to use Apache Airflow because Brana said so, and then how does that new tech work? And then, I have to fit my logic into Brana's thinking. No, the thinking is MCP, the thinking is DKG, and everything else you can add on top your own way. And that doesn't mean you have to build it yourself. Maybe somebody already built a plugin for it. So the idea is easily shareable, reusable code in the form of plugins that is somewhat generic, but not opinionated, and not opinionated like we think it should be. And that, in my opinion, is going to be actually one of the biggest wins here. MCP is a huge win that we made it the central core of the edge node, but it's also a big win that just, it's just easier. You don't have to learn a ton of things to build.
And I think one thing that also then makes it so much more scalable and being able to be brought to millions and millions of users is exactly this interoperability. So you don't need, right now in the current edge node, you have this edge node UI, which has this AI chat component, right, where you can talk to the knowledge bank. You need to define all of these, let's say, relatively complicated knowledge mining pipelines, so then you can talk to it. But now you write those tools, right? Even with the default tools, you could do things, right? You write your own tools. You wanna deploy this agent for a group of users in your organization that uses Teams. Bam, you go on Microsoft Copilot. It's like you don't even have to code, right? You describe what you want the agent to do. You point it to the edge node MCP server. Bam, you can deploy it in Teams, and people can use it in Teams. So it's bringing this, and the same thing, by the way, for Google, Amazon, Claude, OpenAI, every ecosystem in the large ecosystem now in the AI sphere actually has MCP support. Everybody is moving in that direction. So everywhere where you can build an agent that is MCP compliant, you can use the edge node to interact with the edge node MCP server to interact and add to the DKG. So you can imagine how much more exciting this is in the sense of also bringing the technology to the people, to the general public, to benefit from this neurosymbolic thing that is the decentralized knowledge graph. So really exciting stuff there. I feel like a sports reporter talking about that.
Hey, have you seen Jokic play that game? Yeah. I like the question about robots because it's I think it personifies perfectly why this is so important. It's not the only example, but like in a way, I could imagine having a robot right next to us here, whatever, cleaning our house. People already have those small vacuums, right? And then, but if it's a humanoid, and if it just runs on an LLM, trained questionably on who knows what data, and not managed somehow locally, but probably has some phone home mechanism, like that is literally a weapon in your house. Somebody can just like click a button somewhere, or it can glitch, hallucinate, and literally kill you, or whatever. And that's definitely not the future we want. So we want a future where we want to build safe, reliable AI. And this safe, reliable AI is one where we can pick which model we use. That can be even offline if we want. So that basically meaning on the edge, you can run an edge model, like you can run a model today on your machine. By the way, we have to test this. I'm very optimistic about the ability that we can run a local model with the edge node and that it will perform really well because of the tools containing all the logic. We still haven't touched that, so I don't want to make any promises. But the assumption is that we could run, let's say, on a decent laptop, not something.
I will test it. I will test it as soon as I get the laptop.
New laptop.
That's on my plate as well. So we can do something like what's it called? The open source model directory. That
you can do LM Studio, Olama, like these guys. Basically download the model that like can fit in your RAM, and then we can run this and see how it goes. But the assumption here is that basically MCP is just like an LM thinks, okay, I have these 5 tools. What does this prompt look closest to? Should I use a hammer? Should I use this, that, And then, so it's not like we didn't ask it to do deep research. So we don't need like ChatGPT $200 per subscription. You're just asking it to kind of understand what out of these 5 things should I use next? And that's a much simpler task. But again, I'm saying this without a lot of testing behind it.
But you could do things like, for example, use a larger model to construct a query for you because it will do it better, and then use a smaller model, for example, to treat the data that will be sensitive for you. Right? So it's like a lot of flexibility.
So you can use multiple models, exactly. And the point here would be that you could have let's say, a robot in your house that would use both neural AI and symbolic AI that ideally would be symbolic AI for knowledge that has provenance, that has integrity, that has verifiability. So what DKG is all about, and has obviously the ability to retrieve that in a way where we're not just doing some simpler queries like vector similarity, but rather much more advanced knowledge graph queries, which models again are really good at. So long story short, ideally, the future, we want to see robots that operate on such principles, and therefore I don't know of a better technology than the DKG for this, because everything else, every other knowledge graph is either centralized, or every other non-knowledge graph solution doesn't have the power of knowledge graphs, and combine all that with the premier position the DKG has, I don't know of another DKG that anybody else is building that's nearly as scalable or mature as the OriginTrail DKG. So, which is, by the way, the DKG. We should brand it somewhere.
Correct, yes.
Somebody is asking, I missed the BRX. Hey BRX, I missed the first part of the broadcast. Are instructions available for MCP DKG? Okay. So there's an example that's live in Python, but the new thing that you might have seen just now, which I assume you did, is the Edgenode 2.0. Still,
that one is in TypeScript.
It's in TypeScript. It's still closed. But because we haven't just packaged it up for a release yet, it's not ready for a release. But it's ready for adventurers, builders, developers who can stand a little bit of pain of imperfect documentation, imperfect code, half-ready product, but would like to test their game in. So if you are up for it, do let us know. Like, text us, ideally in Discord, and we'd be happy to add you guys to the repo. Just need to respond. Okay, we've been speaking for an hour and 40 minutes. Are we boring you all? Give us a signal. You have any more questions, or is it time for us to go to lunch because we haven't eaten?
I am pretty hungry. We are. I guess after lunch we are going to be hitting that 10-digit mark on the.
Oh yes,
on the decentralized knowledge graph.
200,000 knowledge assets away from 1 billion. Yeah. Oh yeah, and one more thing that's coming out today. Heads up for the node runners. We're going to see a mainnet release today. So there was a testnet release on Friday, which we, due to the whole load of stuff last week, we didn't properly announce. But there was a bunch of fixes that we found from the release last week, and so testnet release showed really good results. For those of you who know and who are running nodes with BlazeGraph, you know that sometimes BlazeGraph process restarts for some reason, and these restarts happen relatively often. Let's say a couple of dozens per day, or even more, depending on the machine. And now we found a fix. So essentially, they happen like once a day, maybe, or something like that. We're still struggling with the load sometimes, so we're trying to tame it, and we're speaking with the actual team behind BlazeGraph. They're part of the OriginTrail ecosystem, effectively, because and they're helping us actively. So kudos to them, and that's Amazon Neptune team. But long story short, we're working on it. So there will be a mainnet release today. I encourage you to update your nodes, because the sooner you do, the sooner your node will let's say, can become more healthy. So it could literally translate into better node performance and higher rewards for your node. So generally, it's always a good suggestion. Try not to wait for the update for too long. The sooner you update, the better. And again, if you guys need any help, we are in the in Discord and Telegram. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you very much. I don't know you, but you should come to the DKG Con and meet us, and then we'll know you. And then Petter, yes, 1B countdown. Well, it's gonna take a few more, I guess, minutes or hour or so, but
I'm guessing we have about between half an hour and an hour.
I suggest we continue the party in Telegram or somewhere while we chew on some chivapi, because I think they already made them and they're getting cold.
I did see the smoke before.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure, I don't know if you guys heard, but there was a bunch of mooing going on around here before.
Yeah.
So there's cows outside. But I think we have another half an hour or so left, depending on the rate in the next hour. But seems like we're 210,000 away. and then we pop the champagne.
Yeah, it's a good day for champagne, July 1st.
It's true.
Yeah, there's plenty of other things going on also in the ecosystem, though this is a V8 focused podcast, but there's exciting stuff around NeuroWeb. I encourage you to follow it up. There's a hydration Trac listing governance proposal just passed. It was voted in by the hydration community by overwhelming support. So you will be seeing Trac soon on hydration, including the bridge to NeuroWeb being slowly but surely finalized and moved and replacing the teleport system. So plenty of exciting stuff there. Also Neuro getting support on hydration, not to forget that as well. And yeah, plenty of other really exciting things that don't fit in this episode. And but I hope we didn't bore you guys to that. We spoke like for an hour and 45 minutes. So I hope it was exciting. And if you still have any questions or just want to let us know, or want to try out the Edge Node 2.0, just hop in. We'll be in Telegram and Discord, and we're happy to chat some more. And Node runners, pay attention for the mainnet release announcement. It's coming out in the next hour-ish too, something like that. I'm not sure. But it's coming, most likely it's coming today. So stay tuned. And
happy 1 billion.
Happy 1 billion, everybody.
And then billions and billions,
billions and
billions.
Yeah, it's
coming.
It's accelerating.
I hope this kind of also was insightful from a, let's say, informational, but also gives some very kind of good picture of what's coming, because I think with all of the upgrades on the network, the Edge Node 2.0 coming, this is really enabling a ton of additional scalability and ease of use and access, actually, that we didn't have to this level before. So it's going to be a really exciting next couple of months. Hot summer, temperature wise here in Slovenia, but also DKG wise. So yeah, let's catch up then, or continue the party in Telegram, Discord when we hit 1 billion. And if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, if you want to have access to the and take the prototype out for a spin a little bit, let us know. We'll figure something out. And yeah, we can, I guess, close it down.
Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the week. Have a great summer. See you.
Take care. Bye-bye.